The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the survey vessel, Aurora, its sleek hull gleaming under the distant light of unfamiliar stars. Captain Maya stood on the bridge, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the cosmic void. 25 souls aboard this ship depended on her leadership, and she felt the weight of that responsibility with every decision. "Captain," came the voice of Science Officer Ryan from his station. "We're detecting an anomalous signal on the long-range sensors. It appears to be ancient." Maya turned her dark eyes, focusing on the readings displayed across multiple screens. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as her crew worked at their stations, the soft blue glow of the control panels casting shadows across their focused faces. The year was 2425, and the Galactic Alliance had sent them to this remote sector to gather data on cosmic phenomena near the Gamma 7 system. "What kind of signal?" Maya approached his station, her footsteps silent on the polished deck. The science officer, a tall man with graying temples, adjusted his instruments with practiced precision. "It's a distress signal, Captain. SOS pattern, but the encryption suggests it's approximately 150 years old. The source appears to be originating from the third planet in the Gamma 7 system." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Gamma 7-3 was classified as a Class 5 death world, a planet so hostile that even the most advanced civilizations avoided it. The atmospheric readings showed radiation storms crushing gravity nearly 3 times Earth standard and surface temperatures that could melt most known alloys. "Orders are clear," she murmured, more to herself than to Rian. "Any distress signal, regardless of age, must be investigated." She turned to address the bridge. "Engineering Officer Lyra, prepare for course correction. Navigator Solon, plot a trajectory for Gamma 7-3. Lyra, a compact woman with cybernetic implants along her left temple, looked up from her console. "Captain, our weapon systems are functioning at optimal capacity, but engaging a death world environment will strain our shields considerably." "Understood," Maya nodded. "Solon, what's our ETA?" The navigator, whose expertise in xenolinguistics had proven invaluable in first contact scenarios, ran quick calculations. 6 hours at current velocity, Captain. Shall I engage the quantum drive?" "Make it so." As the Aurora shifted course, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying towards something far more dangerous than a simple rescue mission. The ancient signal seemed to pulse with an ominous rhythm on the sensors, like a heartbeat from a dead world calling them into the darkness. 6 hours later, the Aurora dropped out of quantum travel, at the edge of Gamma 7-3's orbit. The planet loomed before them like a wounded giant, its surface scarred by radiation storms that painted the atmosphere in violent shades of red and orange. Lightning, the size of continents, arced across the upper atmosphere, and the magnetic field readings suggested metals in the planet's core were constantly shifting, creating gravitational anomalies. "Captain," Ryan called out, his voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting a structure on the surface. It appears to be some kind of observatory or research station, but the readings are inconsistent with known Alliance technology." Through the view screen, they could see a small metallic dome, barely visible through the swirling storms. The structure looked ancient, weathered by decades of exposure to the planet's harsh environment. "Take us into a stable orbit," Maya ordered. "Lyra, bring our shields to maximum. I want continuous scans of that facility." As the Aurora settled into orbit, alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. Ryan's fingers flew over his console, his face paling as data flooded his screens. "Captain, the SOS signal. It's triggered something. I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. Multiple contacts moving at incredible speed." "How many?" Maya demanded, her training kicking in as she moved to the tactical display. 12 vessels, Captain. They're warships. Heavy armament configurations, unknown design, but definitely military grade." Before Maya could respond, the space around them erupted in brilliant flashes as 12 massive vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Each ship was at least twice the size of the Aurora, their hulls black as obsidian and bristling with weapon arrays that looked capable of cracking planets. Incoming transmission. Solon announced, his voice barely steady. Universal translator is struggling with a dialect, but it appears to be from the Deathworlders. Maya's blood ran cold. The Deathworlders were a warrior culture that had evolved on some of the most hostile planets in the galaxy. They were known for their incredible physical prowess, advanced military technology, and an honor code that valued strength above all else. Contact with them had been minimal and always tense. "Put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered, then resolved into the image of a being that could only be described as intimidatingly magnificent. Admiral Valak of the Deathworlder fleet stood nearly 8 feet tall, his muscular frame covered in armor that seemed to be forged from the same dark metal as his ships. His face was humanoid, but angular, with eyes that burned like molten gold and skin that bore the scars of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice was like rolling thunder. "Alliance vessel." Valak's words came through the translator with mechanical precision, though the underlying tone conveyed barely controlled rage. "You have activated the ancient beacon of challenge. We answer the call to combat. Prepare to face the might of the Deathworld fleet." Maya stepped forward, her mind racing. "Challenge. What challenge?" "Admiral Valak, I am Captain Maya of the Galactic Alliance vessel Aurora. We responded to a distress signal, as per Alliance protocol. There has been some misunderstanding." Valak's golden eyes narrowed. "The signal you speak of is not distress. It is the call of proving issued by the research station below. For 150 years it has broadcast into the void, seeking worthy opponents to test our strength against. You are the first to answer." "Admiral," Maya said carefully, "our translation of the signal clearly indicated distress. We came to render aid, not to fight." "Your translation is imperfect," Valak replied, though something in his expression suggested uncertainty. "The beacon speaks in the old tongue before our peoples knew each other's languages. But the intent was clear to us. Combat, honor, a test of strength between civilizations." Ryan stepped forward, his scientific mind working frantically. "Captain, if I may. Language drift over 150 years, especially in deep space, signals subjected to cosmic interference. It's possible the original meaning was corrupted." Valak's ships began moving into an attack formation, their weapons charging with ominous energy signatures that made the Aurora's defensive systems scream warnings. But something in the Admiral's stance had changed, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. "Admiral," Maya pressed, "what if we're both right? What if the signal was intended as a research beacon, but the language degradation over time made it appear to be something else to both our peoples?" "Impossible," Valak growled, but his conviction seemed shaken. "The Deathworlders do not make such errors." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Lyra's hands hovered over the weapons controls, ready to defend their ship, while Solon worked frantically to refine the translation matrix. In the view screen, the Deathworlder fleet loomed like dark harbingers of destruction. "Captain," Rian called out suddenly, "I've managed to decode more of the original signal. You need to see this." The main screen split, showing both Admiral Valak and a readout of the ancient transmission. As the data scrolled past, both captains began to see the truth. "It's a survey beacon," Ryan explained, his voice gaining confidence. "The facility below was a joint research station established 150 years ago during an early diplomatic contact between our peoples. The signal was meant to indicate ongoing research, but after decades of radiation interference and quantum decay, the core message became corrupted." Valak's expression had transformed from one of aggressive certainty to something approaching embarrassment. "You mean to tell me that my fleet, that we came prepared for glorious battle based on a miscommunication?" "It appears so, Admiral," Maya replied gently, "though your response shows the honor and strength of your people. You answered what you believed was a challenge without hesitation. For a moment, the space between the two fleets was filled only with the hum of engines and the distant radiation storms of the death world below. Then, Valak began to laugh, a sound like distant thunder that somehow managed to convey both humor and respect. "Captain Maya," he said, his formal tone softening slightly. "It seems we have both been victims of time and chance. But perhaps this is an opportunity rather than a mistake." "How so, Admiral?" "The old research station below. According to our records, it was abandoned due to political tensions between our peoples. But if we are here now, both of our fleets in this forsaken corner of space, perhaps it is time to resume that research. Together." Maya felt a surge of hope. "You're suggesting a joint mission?" "I am suggesting," Valak said with growing enthusiasm, "that instead of the battle we both prepared for, we engage in something far more challenging: cooperation. The death world below holds secrets that neither of our peoples could unlock alone. But together, Maya finished, we might succeed where our predecessors failed." The negotiation that followed was swift but thorough. Both captains were military officers trained in diplomacy as well as combat, and they quickly established the framework for a joint research mission. The Aurora would provide scientific expertise and analytical equipment, while the Deathworlder fleet would contribute their unparalleled knowledge of surviving in hostile environments and their advanced shield technology capable of withstanding the planet's brutal conditions. Within hours, the first joint landing party was assembled. Maya found herself standing in the Aurora's shuttle bay, suited in environmental armor, designed to handle the Deathworld's extreme conditions. Beside her stood Admiral Valak, his imposing figure somehow even more impressive in his own combat-rated environmental suit. "Captain," he said, his voice coming through the suit's comm system, "I must admit this is not how I expected this day to end." "Nor I, Admiral, but sometimes the best outcomes are the ones we never planned for." The shuttle ride to the planet's surface was harrowing. The Aurora's pilot, Lieutenant Torres, navigated through radiation storms and gravitational anomalies that would have torn apart a less well-shielded craft. The Deathworlder escort ships flew in perfect formation around them, their shields creating a protective bubble that helped them penetrate the planet's vicious atmosphere. The research station was larger than it had appeared from orbit, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers that had somehow withstood 150 years of the Deathworld's assault. The main structure was built into the side of a mountain to protect it from the worst of the radiation storms, and the approach landing pad was still functional, though scarred by decades of neglect. As the joint team made their way into the main facility, they discovered a treasure trove of abandoned research. The station had been investigating the unique properties of the Deathworld's core, a phenomenon that generated exotic matter under extreme gravitational stress matter that could potentially revolutionize both weapons and engine technology. "Look at this," Dr. Ryan breathed, his instruments going wild as he scanned a sealed chamber in the station's heart. "The exotic matter production is still active. The automated systems have been running continuously for 150 years. Valak studied the readings on his own scanner, his golden eyes bright with interest. "This explains why the signal continued broadcasting. The station's power core has been feeding off the planet's own energy, using it to maintain basic functions." "But why was the project abandoned?" asked Lyra, who had joined the landing party to assess the station's technical capabilities. "Political tensions," Valak replied grimly. "Our people's first contact had gone well initially, but there were incidents, misunderstandings that escalated into violence. Both sides withdrew from joint projects, including this one." Maya nodded sadly. "And for 150 years, this station has been broadcasting, essentially calling for help to finish what we started." Over the following days, the two crews worked together with an efficiency that surprised everyone involved. The Alliance personnel brought advanced analytical techniques and computational power, while the Deathworlders contributed practical knowledge of extreme environment survival and innovative engineering solutions. The breakthrough came on the fourth day. Working together, teams from both ships managed to not only understand the exotic matter generation process, but also find a way to safely harvest and contain it. The implications were staggering. This technology could provide clean, virtually limitless energy for space exploration and potentially revolutionize interstellar travel. Captain Solon reported during one of the daily briefings aboard the Aurora. Admiral Valak is requesting a formal communication. When Valak appeared on screen, he looked different somehow, less like a warrior preparing for battle, and more like a leader contemplating the future. Captain Maya, he began, my people and yours have accomplished more in these few days than either could have achieved in years of separate efforts. I propose we make this arrangement permanent. What exactly are you suggesting, Admiral? A joint research facility. A permanent station here staffed by both our peoples, dedicated to unlocking the secrets of Deathworlds across the galaxy. We have dozens of such planets in our territory, each with unique properties that could benefit all civilized species. Maya felt a thrill of excitement. It would require approval from both our governments, which I believe we can obtain given the magnitude of what we've discovered here. But more than that, Captain, I believe this incident has shown us something important. Our peoples are stronger together than apart. The formal treaty was signed 1 week later, witnessed by representatives who traveled from both the Alliance capital and the Deathworlder homeworld. The ceremony took place aboard the largest of Valak's ships, with Captain Maya and Admiral Valak standing side by side as they affixed their signatures to the historic document. The treaty established not just the research station, but also protocols for future cooperation, cultural exchange programs, and joint military exercises designed to improve understanding between the two societies. The Deathworld facility was renamed the Unity Research Station, and it would become the first of many such joint ventures. As the Aurora prepared to depart, leaving behind a crew to help establish the permanent research facility, Maya found herself standing on the observation deck with Admiral Valak. Through the transparent armor plating, they could see the Deathworld spinning below them, its storms still raging, but somehow less threatening now that they understood its secrets. You know, Valak said thoughtfully, in our culture, we have a saying, the strongest blade is forged in the hottest fire. I think perhaps the strongest alliances are forged in misunderstanding. Maya smiled. We have a similar saying, from small acorns, mighty oaks grow. One mistaken signal has grown into something that could change the galaxy. Indeed, Captain Maya, I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. I believe it is, Admiral. I truly believe it is. As the Aurora departed the Gamma-7 system, Maya reflected on the events of the past weeks. What had begun as a routine survey mission had turned into a near-catastrophic military confrontation, only to transform into one of the most successful diplomatic and scientific ventures in recent history. The SOS signal that had called them to this remote corner of space had indeed been a mistake, but it was a mistake that had led to something beautiful. Sometimes, Maya thought the best discoveries came not from perfect planning, but from the courage to turn misunderstanding into opportunity. Behind them, the Deathworld continued its eternal dance around its star, but it was no longer alone. The Unity Research Station's lights twinkled like a beacon of hope against the planet's violent skies, a symbol of what could be achieved when different civilizations chose cooperation over conflict. In the months that followed, the Unity Research Station would become a model for interspecies cooperation throughout the galaxy. The exotic matter technology developed there would power a new generation of starships, making faster-than-light travel more efficient and accessible to smaller civilizations. Cultural exchanges between the Alliance and the Deathworlders would lead to advances in medicine, engineering, and warfare. But perhaps most importantly, the incident at Gamma-7 III would be remembered as proof that even the darkest misunderstandings could give birth to the brightest possibilities if people were willing to listen, learn, and choose understanding over conflict. The SOS had been a mistake, but from that mistake had come something far more valuable than anyone could have imagined: a future where the strongest warriors and the wisest scientists could work side by side, united in their quest to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Years later, when historians would write about this pivotal moment in galactic relations, they would note that the real message of the ancient beacon was neither distress nor challenge but hope. Hope that different peoples could find common ground, even in the most unlikely circumstances, and that the greatest adventures often began with the simple willingness to answer a call for help, regardless of the risks involved. Captain Maya would go on to become the first Alliance administrator of the Unity Research Station, working closely with Admiral Valek to establish the protocols that would govern joint operations throughout the galaxy. Their partnership became legendary proof that trust could be built even between the most different of peoples. The Death World itself, once seen as a symbol of cosmic hostility, became a beacon of cooperation. Its storms still raged, its gravity still crushed the unwary, and its radiation still scoured the surface. But now, it served a different purpose. It had become a forge where the strongest alliances in the galaxy were tested and proven. And deep in its core, the exotic matter continued to form under unimaginable pressure and heat, much like the friendship between two peoples who had nearly destroyed each other over a misunderstood message, but who had instead chosen to build something extraordinary together. The ancient SOS beacon was finally deactivated, its purpose fulfilled not in the way its creators had intended, but in a way that exceeded their wildest dreams. In its place, a new signal began broadcasting across the galaxy, not a distress call, but an invitation. An invitation to all civilizations to come and see what could be accomplished when enemies became friends, when misunderstanding became opportunity, and when the courage to reach out was met with the wisdom to reach back. The Unity Research Station continued to grow, expanding into a small city that housed scientists, engineers, warriors, and diplomats from dozens of different species. Children born on the station grew up speaking multiple languages, learning multiple fighting styles, and seeing diversity not as a source of conflict, but as a source of strength. The Death World still killed the careless and claimed the unprepared, but it had also become a place where the impossible became routine, where hatred became friendship, and where an ancient mistake became the foundation for a brighter future. And sometimes, late at night when the radiation storms painted the sky in brilliant auroras, those who walked the observation decks of the Unity Research Station could hear something in the wind, not the howl of a hostile world, but the whisper of history being written, the sound of two civilizations that had learned that the strongest force in the universe was not the gravity of a death world or the power of a war fleet, but the simple, profound act of choosing to understand rather than to destroy. The story of the SOS that was a mistake would be told and retold throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless other ventures in cooperation and understanding. It became a reminder that in the vast, dark expanse of space, the most dangerous thing was not the hostile planets or the alien enemies, but the failure to communicate, the rush to judgment, and the assumption that difference meant hostility. But it also showed that even the gravest mistakes could become the greatest triumphs if people had the courage to look beyond their assumptions and see the possibilities that lay hidden in misunderstanding. The Deathworlders learned that strength was not just about physical power or military might, but about the ability to adapt to change and to build bridges where none had existed before. The Alliance learned that diplomacy was not just about negotiation and compromise, but about the willingness to see the honor in cultures very different from their own. Together, they discovered that the universe was not a battlefield where only the strongest survived, but a vast library of knowledge where every civilization had something unique to contribute, and where the greatest discoveries came not from conquest, but from collaboration. The SOS had been a mistake, but it was the kind of mistake that changed everything, not through destruction, but through creation, not through fear, but through hope, and not through the end of communication, but through its glorious, unexpected beginning.